This is part 2 of the assembly of a large mobile crane model, and it's a modeller's own creation made up of a LEGO Technic type brick system. Here we have the progression of the carrier, and it's becoming a large model. Many of the axle locations have now been built, but there is a problem that we are short of some parts that are required to build the model, and hopefully the maker will send those out shortly. This is certainly not a model for a complete beginner to build, and some additional work is sometimes required. Here are 2 standard parts which fit together, but the fit is not perfect and there's a tiny gap. And on an engineering model like this, that gap has a consequence, and future parts won't align properly. But as a quick and dirty solution, we can trim the end off of one of the parts to make the fit perfect. Here's another part of the assembly, and it shows 2 of the outriggers, a short one and a longer one. And there are 4 units like this in total. They have a representative hydraulic ram at the end, and you can raise and lower the outrigger pad by unscrewing. And as you can also see, there's a motor installed inside the beam. Talking of motors, there's a large number included with the set, and here are the main remote control elements. First, there's a simple joystick controller, and that's powered by 3 AAA batteries. And the middle part is the receiver, and it also contains a rechargeable battery. And that gets charged up by using an included USB cable. Finally, there are different types of motors, and they all have a power lead. And that fits on in the usual way to the controller box. It's a good idea when building a complex model like this to test the various subsystem parts, rather than waiting to the end to see if it all works. So firstly, we can just test the individual motors to see that they work. And here we see the power cable connected, and then one of the joystick levers operates the motor. And it's certainly a good idea to test the motors now before they get installed and hard to reach. So let's run some subsystem checks on what we've built so far. And we'll start with a motor that drives the wheels. Connect up the power supply and then get it going, and we can see the engine is working with the pistons going up and down. And we can also see the drive axles rotating. Next we'll connect up another one of the motors, and as you can see, this controls the steering. Next we have another motor which drives the rear axles. And next we'll test another motor located in the top of the carrier deck. This one does not work quite so well because the gear wheel snags on the structure. And maybe that's due to the design using a non-standard spacing of parts. Or maybe it's just a tolerance issue in the manufacture. But this clashing and friction is foreseen in the manual. And in one of the few elements of written instruction, it tells you to actually trim off some of the structure parts. So let's take a look and see how that might be done. And to make it easy to do, you need to remove the offending gear wheel, and then use a sharp knife to try and trim off the edge of the beams. This is a little bit of a surprising thing to have to do, but it is a complex engineering model. And I guess sometimes you just have to make things work. The next test we have is on the first part of the crane superstructure. And here you can see there's a gear ring on the underside. And the motor we're testing actually rotates the crane. But this is an example where it's good to test the mechanism before we go too far. And that's because, although it does work, the worm gear that drives the rotation is not perfectly functioning. So we'll need to check the adjustment. Finally, at this stage of the assembly, you can also check our outrigger beams. And as we've already seen, they've got a motor in each of them. With the power connected, we can see the motor drives the extension and retraction of the telescopic outrigger beam. So far, this is a long and complex build, and there's still a long way to go to finish the model.